Hello, we are here to film our historical romance reader book tag. What do you think? Jesus gonna help me. She's been yelling at me because I changed. I'm not sitting on the floor like normal. I'm standing up because I figured I would pull books from my bookshelf as we go through the questions. And she has been yelling at me because I've been getting stuff set up. Want to say hi to the people? Look over here. Say hi. Yeah. Oh, goodness. So, I've got my handy little questions. This book tag was created by Jess from Peace Love Books. I'll link her down below. And I'm super excited to do this. I'm wearing my new sweatshirt. It's Feelin' Clinch AF. This was a bonfire. I don't know what she called it, but it was like a limited edition kind of run thing by Romantically Inclined on Instagram. So, of course, I jumped on it. And I'm filming this the Tuesday before Bridgerton comes out. And so this will hopefully be up Saturday. So, Bridgerton Season 2 weekend. So, I figured now I'll do the historical romance reader tag and then leave some of my other tags for later. I am hoping to do other tags like once a month, but we'll see what pops up and what I find. If you know any other reader or book tags that you would like me to answer or fill out or whatever, pop them down below and I can get those added to my list. Of course, I should also mention, hi, I'm Stacy. You already met Cheese. She's over here screaming. You can't see her. She's right here. And welcome to the Reads of an Apple. Now that you've already been blasted by my ramblings. But let's get to it. So, number 1. What was the first historical romance you ever read? It was probably some like Harlequin or Silhouette historical romance. I don't really know. But it would have been something I stole from my grandmother, for sure. Or not stole, but I read when I was at my grandmother's house. The first one, or at least the first one that really stuck out to me, was a historical one set during the Gold Rush. And it was a woman is going out to, it wasn't San Francisco, but it was somewhere in like Northern California, I want to say, and she was going out to meet her fiance or just longtime person. They weren't married. And because he hadn't written back in his usual time frame, and so she went out there, she runs into a former cowboy, and he like helps guide her after she has an issue and run in with some like bandit type people. And I really liked it. And she gets there and her fiance dude ends up having like gone up into the mountains and like become a recluse, and he's still alive, but he was just like, I'm done with this or something weird. And she ends up with the former cowboy turned, I can't remember what he does now. He just like, he kind of is like a vigilante guy, and he's like tracking down all these bandits, but he's not actually a part of the sheriff's office. I want to say it was like by Molly something, but that's like the one that sticks out vivid in my brain. And I don't know, I feel it was a thinner book, so it has to have been like a Harlequin or Silhouette or one of the thinner romance novels, because I do remember it was pretty thin. But I don't remember the name, and I think Molly was the first name of the author. I should really try to find out what that was, but I feel like gold was in the title. Like circles of gold or something like that. But anyway, we'll move on. So what was the last historical romance you read? Last week I read this book here, The Proposal Oh my goodness, there's a kitty under my feet. Proposal by Mary Balog. I'll go on this side so it's in the light a little bit better. I read this for Rake Appreciation Society, hosted by Crystal and Jen, who I'll link down below. I give this 3.5 stars. It was okay. I ended up kind of struggling getting into it, but it does have a pretty step back, pretty purple dress. And this is the book 1 in her Survivors Club series, but it was okay. I haven't read a Mary Balog that I've absolutely loved yet, but I have heard good things about some of her other books. I'll just put that one over there for now. So, number 3, who is an underrated historical author you wish more people read? I mean, I gotta go with one of my favorite modern historical romance authors. And that is, I'm just gonna grab a couple. This is her, which one is this? Seasons Original Series, Vivian Lorette. She is one of my favorite modern historical romance authors. I absolutely love her. I haven't heard enough people on BookTube and Bookstagram talk about her. She is one of my favorites. This was actually the first series I read from her, Seasons Original. And so here's book 1, book 2, book 3, and then a novella that's 3.5. Her current series is Mating Habits of a Scoundrel, and the next book comes out in May, and I cannot wait. I love Vivian Lorette. I've read most of her books. I need to finish the Wallflower Wedding series, her trilogy, and then I also need to read the Rakes of Fallow Hall trilogy, and then I'm all caught up on her. But she is definitely one of my favorites. Her newest series is really good, and I really enjoyed the Seasons Original. Like I said, this was the first series I read from her, and I absolutely adored it and immediately picked up her other books. I know a lot of people start with the How to Forget a Duke, and this is a part of the Misadventures in Matchmaking, but I gotta say, this is probably my least favorite of her series, but this has an amnesia trope. And I still really liked them, but it's my least favorite of her series. So I just want to throw that out there, because a lot of people gravitate to this one as their first one, but this one I struggled with a little bit. But Seasons Original, I absolutely love. Book 1, The Debutante is Mine. So good. I lost my paper. For underrated, I'm going to mention one other person as well. I'll go ahead and pull her out. And I don't know if it's quite technically underrated, but I'm going to say Bethany Bennett. She is a newer historical romance author. This was her first book in 2020. Any Rogue Will Do. This is book 1 in the Misfits of Mayfair series. Book 2 came out last year, and that was West End Earl. Loved it. Gave them both 5 stars. Book 3 comes out, I want to say, on the same day as Vivian Lorette's, May 24th, I think. And I can't wait for it. But I really like Bethany Bennett. She's a new author, just started last year, only has the 2 books out so far. I really, really enjoyed these. These are so good. And she is a new favorite author of mine. So, number 4, who's a historical author you haven't read yet but need to? There's not very many that I have in paperback that are like I need to read, because I mostly buy paperbacks after I've read at least a book, if not more, because right now I am hurting a little bit on space. I guess I will say Charis Michaels. I have been buying this series. This is book 1. I know book 2 came out, and they're based on like fairy tales. So this is Snow White. The other one that came out last year, this one I want to say is Peter Pan. or at least Tinkerbell, and I know book 3 is like Little Mermaid, and I got these because I love fairy tale retellings, but I haven't read Cheris Michaels before, but I also love the covers, so I did get those. So I haven't read any of her. I could probably grab my Kindle because I have quite a few authors on my Kindle. I mean, I could say, like, I need to read more Eloisa James. I've only read a couple of her books. I definitely need to read more of her because she has a big backlog, or big backlist. And I want to read more Donna Fletcher. I've read quite a bit of Donna Fletcher, but I haven't read all of her books. Oh, I know. I'm just going to grab one in the middle here. Karen Hawkins. I've only read one Karen Hawkins, so I definitely need to read more Karen Hawkins. I have a lot of her stepbacks, though, because she has really gorgeous stepbacks. Some of my favorite stepbacks are by her. Actually, one of my favorites. Like, I have like 3 that I like, depending on my mood, are my favorites. This one is Scandal in Scotland. I'll show you the stepback again. But yeah, so definitely I need to read more Karen Hawkins because I've read one book by her, and I think it was even a novella or a short story or something like that. So I definitely need to pick her up. Even more so because I own a lot of her books. Okay, number 5. What historical romance would you recommend to people who are new to the genre? Well, that's hard to say because when I recommend books to people, it's very much based on what they enjoy and authors that they like. And what kind of, like, if they haven't read any romance whatsoever, they're looking to get into historical romance, I'm very much a person that'll like push you in the deep end instead of dipping a toe in. So I would definitely go for Elisa Kleypas. I would probably start with either Again the Magic or the Hathaway series, because I love the Hathaway series, and while the Hathaways are connected to the Wallflowers, they aren't super connected. I know a lot of people recommend like Tessa Dare and people like that. Tessa Dare doesn't really work for me. I enjoy her books, but there's only one book that I've rated 5 stars. The rest are 4 or 3 stars, and that one is the Scott one. The one where she writes a letter to a made-up Scotsman in the military, and he turns out he's a real person. I liked that one, but I love epistolary romances, so that was an easier trope for me, or an easier, like, I loved it going in before even really reading it, kind of a thing. But yeah, it all depends on what they enjoy. If they like dark romance, I would definitely recommend Kerrigan Byrne for some of the darker stuff. If they like contemporary, I would stick with some of the newer authors. I would go for like a Vivian Lorette, Christina Britton, Bethany Bennett. But honestly, like, if you really want to get into historical romance, if you have no reading taste to give me and you just want to get into historical romance, I would say get into one of the historical romance queens, because they have a huge backlist. Read through the blurbs, find tropes you like, or talk to someone who's read them, find tropes you like, and then go from there. So Lisa Kleypas, Eloisa James, yes, Tessa Dare. I mean, those are like the 3 big ones, I think. Lorraine Heath, she has a big backlist too. So that's kind of where I would go, but once again, it depends on the person. But going in completely blind, no reading taste, no input, I would go for one of the queens and just push you in the deep end. Number 6. What is your favorite historical romance of all time? Love in the Afternoon by Lisa Kleypas. Book 5 in the Hathaway series. The one true Chris. He is my one true Chris. If you don't know that, there was the whole Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans, and the other Christopher actor was that were like all popular. And they were like, who's your one true Chris? My one true Chris. Right here. Christopher Phelan, Captain Phelan, and his little dog, Albert. Yes, I flipped right to that. I have read this book so many times. This is my favorite book. This is from my favorite series by Lisa Kleypas. It's epistolary. This book is just, I'm like tearing up just thinking about it. It touches me so much. I love this book so much. It's my favorite, and it will be very hard to dethrone it. Although, I must say, a lot of people love Derek Craven by Lisa Kleypas. It's Dreaming of You, I think. I have not read that. I've read the first book, and I loved it. I have not read it yet. From what I've heard, I feel like I'd be more on Team Vincent than Team Derek, but I'm Team Chris. I mean, let's be real. I'm Team Chris. I love it. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I love it. Do you prefer new or old school historical romance? So I have been enjoying like new historical romance in the past like year-ish. I feel like during the beginning of the pandemic, it was kind of a little too feminist pushing. And I'm very much like, most people reading this already know this. We don't need to push it on us. We are not the people that need to learn this. Granted, there may be other people picking up the books that aren't as heavily feminist or women's rights or whatever. But it's too pushy sometimes. But I have been enjoying, like Bethany Bennett, Christina Britton, Kate Pembroke, Emily Sullivan, some of the newer authors that are traditionally published, I have really enjoyed. And I really like them. But like mid to late 2010s is not my jam for a lot of those. There are a few exceptions, like Vivian Lorette. And then obviously like the queens that have been writing, like Lisa Kleypas, Eloisa James, they've written both old school and new school. So I feel like my sweet spot is the later old schools and the older new schools. Like in that tiny little area where they slightly overlap is my sweet spot. So like early 2000s, late 1990s. And I don't know the exact like cutoffs for like new versus old, but that's my sweet spot. Although I've been really enjoying like published yesterday or last year books, but I haven't read all of them. So number 8, what are your favorite historical romance tropes? Well, this is very similar for a lot of the romance books I read. However, my favorite trope is wrong sibling / cousin, because that also works as well. And I feel like that works best in historical romance. I have read some contemporary romances where it's worked and a couple paranormals where it's worked, but I feel like it works best in historical romance because a lot of the times you will get like arranged marriages or that kind of thing. So where our established couple has absolutely no feelings for each other. It's all been arranged by family members, parents, other people, and they just kind of get shoved into this match. And they don't like each other. A prime example is Bridgerton, the Viscount Who Loved Me. I'll go ahead and pull my special pretty hardback cover here. So like this one definitely fits the trope. It is a little less angsty about it though, because almost from the get-go, Anthony keeps going after Edwina because he thinks that's what he should marry, but he's also specifically going after a woman that he knows he can't fall in love with because he doesn't want to hurt her, and if he dies early like his father, he doesn't want her to go through the type of heartache that he watched his mother go through. And so, but he falls in love with her older sister, Kate. So that kind of a thing. Another one I recently read, Tracy and Warren, The Husband Trap. This is twins that switch place. I loved this book. I love it. I don't know why. It's part of the being seen kind of a thing where, a lot of the times the other sister is pretty or more confident or has whatever extra personality quirk that the ton seems to love and society is really drawn to, but they just kind of get left. But then the other sister, cousin, twin, I've read it where it's close cousins and that works, but it's basically two close people, and you're expecting and planning on being with this one person because for all appearances they are the perfect society wife, but in true honesty, the other person that is unseen is perfect for that hero or heroine. I have read a couple of wrong sibling tropes where it's actually the male, but it's not as common. I've only found a couple. So if you know any, leave them down below. I love the trope. I have a list on my phone whenever I hear someone talk about a book or read a blurb and it sounds slightly like it might be the trope. I write it down, and I have a specific to-do list for wrong sibling tropes because I don't know. It just gets me. I don't know. Not that I want to steal my sister's boyfriend or anything like that. I don't want that to be a thing, but I just love the trope, and it tends to be kind of angsty, which is weird because I usually am not a big angst person, but I don't know. It just does something for me. Other tropes I like, the typical forced proximity. There's only one bed, one carriage, one whatever. Friends to lovers. I do prefer friends to lovers over enemies to lovers. For historical, I love Wallflowers. I am a fairly shy bookish person myself, so I can definitely connect with the more Wallflower spinstery type characters. And I will say, I'm not a big fan let's see if I can find one. Okay, I'll do this one. It kind of works. Of class difference. Obviously this is Lisa Kleypas. It's marrying Winterbourne. This is an exception to the rule. I have a hard time with books that have a class difference where it's more Cinderella retellings. Even though I love fairy tale retellings, I much prefer the man to be of the lower class than the woman. I feel like there's a lot of really common plot points and things done when a woman is of a lower class, and I struggle a lot to enjoy that more. So I definitely prefer a self-made man than a lower class woman. And I don't know if that's self-made woman. I haven't really heard it. I've heard it more of Cinderella retelling and self-made man, but I don't know. But I definitely prefer the male to be the lower class if we're doing class difference. I don't know why. I just struggle with it. Okay. What are your favorite historical romance settings? I love Regency, although I know that's super common. I have read some Georgian books, so the previous time period, Or maybe it's later. I don't know. I'm bad at my history. But I don't like it with the wig stuff because I don't picture them with wigs. And then when you hear they're wearing wigs, you're just like, oh. And that's just weird to me. And if I would picture all of our characters with wigs, all of our male characters would just look really silly in my head. So I don't prefer that. Or if I do read that genre, I don't think about them wearing wigs. I also love, love, love Highlander. Like older, I don't know if these have time periods, but like medieval, I guess. Yeah, so this is 1005. So I like that time period, whatever it is, in Scotland, because we get all of the different clans and Highlanders, and I love it. So those are usually my go-tos, is Scottish Highlander romance or Regency. Okay, number 10. What is the oldest historical romance you own? It's got to be a Joanna Lindsay, I think. That's probably the oldest I known. I should have checked it, but let me see. Okay, so it is Glorious Angel by Joanna Lindsay. I'll pop the cover right here. I could not find it in my books, and I'm not going to completely tear it apart because my bookshelf goes 3 stacks back. So it's probably in the back. This is where it's like more protected. So that's my oldest owned. And let's quickly wrap up here because I'm getting yelled at. What is the favorite stepback you own? Ooh. Let's see. I think I would have to go with not that one. I know it's right here because it's one of my favorites. Alright. I'm just throwing books, so hold on. Okay, so I'm going to pick 2 because I can never just pick one. So here is my favorite step back. Let me put it in the light here. I'll switch. Aren't the colors gorgeous? This is Just One Kiss by Samantha James. I bought this because of the step back. And it's so absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to count this as my favorite step back. And then my favorite like actual step back where you flip the front page is this one. Once again, it's buried in my bookshelf. This is by Kat Martin. I love bath step backs. One of my favorites. I love the artwork. I much prefer step backs like these where it's more like a painted instead of a photograph. That's really my jam. I really love them. Yeah, do you too? Do you love them? And then, since I mentioned earlier, I have 3 favorite step backs. I'm just going to pull my other one out. And it's by Karen Hawkins. Sleepless in Scotland. Bam. Look at that. I'm going to switch here. We can get it better in my light. I'm losing my light here as the sun goes down. But look at that. The thigh grabs. His thigh muscles. Ugh. The neck kiss, I absolutely love this. This step back is why I started collecting Karen Hawkins, because I love this step back. I found a picture of it, and it was the background on my phone for the longest time. I don't know, there's just something so sensual and raw about it that I love it. Okay. Number 12, we are almost done. What historical romance releases are you excited for? Well, first of all, we've got book 4, and Vivian Lorette's Mating Habits of Scandals. Here's book 1, Lord Holt Takes a Bride. Book 2, My Kind of Earl. Book 3, The Wrong Marquess with this gorgeous yellow dress. This was my favorite historical romance of 2021. And book 4 comes out May 24th. I have it in my calendar. I grabbed my planner here, and that is the Heart of something, The Heart of a Scoundrel. Hold that thought. Where's the 24th? How to Steal a Scoundrel's Heart. Then we also have the third book of Misfits in Mayfair by Bethany Bennett, and that's Dukes Do It Better. And then book 3 in Joanna Shoups' Fifth Avenue Rebels comes out that day, and that is The Bride Goes Rogue. Let me see if there's any. I know this coming Tuesday, so March 29th, we have book 4 in Anna Harrington's Lord of the Armory, and that's A Relentless Rake. And then we have Eloisa James's How to Be a Wallflower, and that's her starting off a new series, Would Be Wallflowers. So I'm super excited for that. I'm super excited, not exciting. My goodness, I'm getting all excited now, and I can't talk. I can hardly talk, man. Let me just go through April real quick. I don't think I have very many historicals coming out in April. Those are all contemporary. So I don't have any historicals right now in my planner for coming out in April. So I'm just going to stick to those, what comes out later this month, and then April and May. I am planning on doing a quarter 2 new releases. I did it quarter 1 on my blog post, but I decided I'm going to do them in video format from now on, and just kind of keep my blog to reviews and do more of the fun stuff in video format. So I will be doing a quarter 2. So that'll be April, May, and June releases, and that should be up near the end of March at some point. So in the next week or so by the time this goes up. And I'll have all of those, all genres listed there. So that's it. Now, last question. We have one left. What creators do you follow for historical romance recommendations? I will list them all below, but I'm very odd in my historical romance recommendations. I will listen to Jen from the Book Refuge, Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life. They host the Rake Appreciation Club. Jessica, who created this tag, and Samantha with Books with Samantha have the Historical Hellions book club that I've participated in. So there's that. And then I also follow Jesson Reads Romance. Lacey, Lisa, and I feel like Jesson, Lacey, Lisa. So that's like the 7 main people I follow. I know that there's a lot of other creators too that also read historical romance, but I feel like if any of those 7 really recommend a 5-star or even a 4-star historical romance, I will most likely enjoy them. Where I have a little bit of a disconnect, and if I'm honest, most of my new historical people that I pick up come from listopia lists on Goodreads, where I'll look for a certain trope, or I'll look for books published in like March 2021 or something, and there'll be all historical romances released in March 2021, and I'll go through and see which authors I haven't heard of before, or which covers look pretty, or depending on how many are in the list, I'll just look at every single one and read the blurbs and be like, oh, that sounds good, that sounds good, that sounds good. And that's really how I pick up my historical romances. I feel like I do read a lot of the popular authors, but I feel like that's how I found Vivian Lorette, and that's how I found Bethany Bennett. And some of my other favorites come from like Jess Michaels, Elisa Braden, and some of the more indie historical authors. I find that way. So I do get recommendations, from creators, but most of my recommendations are from me going out by myself and finding them, like Tracy and Warren. It's buried in my pile of books over here. The Husband Trap, I've got books 2 and 3 here as well, because I need to read the second books in the trilogy. I found her by looking through lists where it was meant to be you or something like that, which a lot of the times that trope kind of intersects with the wrong sibling trope. So I'll go through and I'll read a bunch of the new books that have been added and read the blurbs and be like, oh, that's my trope. I'll add it to the list. And then I picked up the whole trilogy because I found them super cheap at a used bookstore. So that's really how I get most of my historical romance recommendations. But I'm going to stop jabbering at you. So I'm losing my light and it's late. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any other recommendations or questions or anything, leave them down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that cool stuff. Thank you so much for watching, and definitely feel free to reach out on Instagram or any of the socials. They're all in my link tree if you want to talk more about books and historical romance in general. But until then, I'll see you soon.